What I try to get at is I have realized the songs that I write at times have been trying to reach my hand across the aisle, so to speak, and let's have some common ground and just hopefully have people consider life is short. What we have is precious. Why do you want to be an asshole?
Yo, 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 yo. Welcome to this special edition of Slap the Power, live from Holland. That's right. I find myself on this gorgeous Sunday in this beautiful open-air theater in Holland. I'll put some pictures up on the webs. You'll see it. This week, I'm going to be interviewing one of my favorite human beings who represents possibly one of the greatest artists I know, one of the most musical people I know, who does live in Florida, who does play music and speak to I would think it's safe to say a primarily red audience. And so the interview this week is going to be with the one and only Mr. Ronnie Dee. Some of you who might know him from the interwebs, and if you don't, there's going to be all kinds of information on his art and him in the interview. So there's going to be all kinds of ways to get a hold of him there. The subject this week is going to be something that's near and dear to my heart, which is the immigrant song. My mother's Cuban. I associate with the immigrant hustle, the immigrant lifestyle. My relatives that I knew on my Cuban side came over in the boat lifts. My earliest memories of childhood was Tent City in Miami and getting to meet my relatives for the first time. And my cousin, Ramosito, he was in jail for protesting Castro. And that's how he was able to come to this country with nothing but the clothes on his back. And to watch him and his family, they built businesses and boats and jet skis and houses and everything. It's the true American dream. And yet, at the same time, Southern Florida now has become a hotbed for strongman authoritarian uprisings in a way of trying to assemble power. It's done in this way that is fascinating to me on how people can vote for, say, a Donald Trump or a Ron DeSantis solely on the issue of trying to put down the other or trying to make anybody else who isn't like what Ron DeSantis and his people want. It's pseudo-fascism, and it's fascinating to me. But I wanted to preface this interview with a little bit of information to kind of tell you why we're doing this as well. Ronnie is also a second-generation immigrant kid. I remember not having anything, all of us kind of being in one room, but we were happy to have each other, and there was just so much of a hustle culture, of we'll just work for it culture that I think has been lost, that I think is great about the immigrant experience that needs to be lifted up. I think in our country, we talk about immigration as being a problem. What is really the problem? And why is it not a good idea for artists to be able to talk about these things? And so I think that's bullshit, and that's why we're here today. And I just wanted to kind of pop some figures when we were getting prepared for this interview. We just tripped over a lot of things, and so I want to sort of preface the interview with some of these facts, and hopefully it'll help you guys sort of give some context for why we're doing this episode. In a single day, over 6,000 migrants are apprehended trying to cross the border. That's 2 million apprehensions a year. Okay, that's a lot. It's only going to get worse. The number of family units apprehended while trying to cross the border has increased by 300% compared to just last year. That's why this is important. The pace at which this is going to keep increasing is unprecedented. Waves of large migrant groups have become common. Back in 2021, at least 70 groups of 100 people or more attempted to cross the border, and the government has lost track of more than 85,000 children who have entered the U.S. without a guardian since 2021. Most migrants arriving at the border require medical assistance, mostly due to what they endure in their journey to the U.S. For example, one in three women are sexually assaulted on the journey to the border. I always say this, we experienced this in Europe when we were touring in Europe, and whether it was Syrian refugees or refugees from Northern Africa. When climate change or the war on drugs or just the war in general comes for you and your kids, if a guy showed up with a machete on my front door talking about it, we needed to pay fealty to the drug lords, I'd grab my wife and kids and walk my ass to Texas or Arizona too. So I think it is, not only is it economically sound for us to sort of entertain the idea that we need a solution for this problem, it's necessary from a just sheer humanitarian standpoint. Between global warming and the failed war on drugs, it's only going to get worse on our southern borders. And so border agents spend 75% of their work time providing humanitarian relief, like feeding people, setting broken bones, and delivering babies, if you can believe that. From 2012 to 2019, over 85,000 people caught by Border Patrol were Mexican. And from 2019 on, this percentage decreased to 20%. And that's because there's been a dramatic increase in apprehensions of people from countries like Nicaragua, Venezuela, and Cuba. These countries are overrun by organized crime, gang and drug trafficking violence, and human trafficking. And so, again, why is this happening? It's happening because U.S. drug policy, or the so-called war on drugs, is partially to blame for sparking violence in Latin America countries and driving a huge surge of migration to the U.S. The U.S. used foreign aid and military assistance as leverage to force Latin American countries to man the front lines on the war on drugs, but this is the fallout from that failed war on drugs. War on drug operations in countries like Colombia and Mexico pushed drug traffickers into Honduras, Venezuela, Cuba, and El Salvador, and these countries are now overrun by gangs, cartels, and violence. The drug war displaced but didn't eliminate the problem. And research shows that about 85% of the violence experienced in Latin America is related to drug trafficking. 85%. So this drives vulnerable populations to the U.S. Like I said, if I was in Syria and I was a farmer and all of a sudden we've been farming for hundreds of years in my family, but global warming or war comes and just kills our farmland, I'm going to have to pick up my family and walk my ass to Turkey or to Germany. And so by making these countries, especially in our hemisphere, dangerous and virtually unlivable, the drug cartels have created an incentive for people to flee. And this in turn means more clientele for the human smuggling business. So here's the real big question, right? Again, it's horrible and it's huge, but why should we care? We should care because the illicit drug market continues to fund violent groups in Central and South America, and the war on drugs hasn't reduced drug use, it's actually increased it. Despite its efforts, Mexico remains the leading source of heroin and meth for the American market. And Mexican cartels are the main suppliers of cocaine, heroin, and other narcotics to the U.S. So after 50 years of the war on drugs, drug abuse continues to rise in our country, and every year about 70,000 people die from overdoses. Not only has the drug war failed, but it has harmed millions of innocent people. These people were displaced from their countries and now seek refuge in the U.S. There is a gray area. There is an Overton window where we can, as a country, I don't care if it's not red, it's not blue, it's an immigrant song. That's why I think it's up to artists to talk about this, to bring it to the forefront, to put it into the zeitgeist, because it's going to be the issue where we're going to need to vote on this and we're going to need to be prepared, because it's only going to get worse, especially if we don't do anything. So I want you to check the interview, check what Ronnie and I talk about. Hopefully you enjoy some of it. Hopefully you get a laugh. Okay, so what can we do? There's actually things that we can do. Number one, it's going to be to vote. And number one, it's going to be to talk to people about these things. It's not just a football, and we can't just say, hey, don't let them in, because number one, it's not economically sound. It's not humanitarian. It's not the American way. It's not the European way. And we also need to be dealing with facts that work. Economically speaking, if we give people a leg up, if we give them a hand and we assimilate them into society, the economic data shows that it actually grows the economy. It builds the economy. So we need to think about a solution that is in the middle where we can do something, because doing nothing does not work. It's never going to work to do nothing, right? So what can we do? And beyond that, we can support Border Angels, which conducts water drops in the desert. It supports migrant shelters on the borders, and it helps free asylum seekers from detention and provides legal representation to vulnerable children. You can donate, volunteer to host a fundraiser for them, or purchase anything from their online shop to help fund their operations. We'll put some information about Border Angels in the show notes. And last, support RAICES, which is RAICES. It's the Refugee and Immigrant Center for Education and Legal Services. And they provide free and low-cost legal services to underserved immigrant children, families, and refugees. You can donate, you can host a fundraiser, pledge your birthday to support their their work, donate your airline miles, round up your Lyft fare as a gift, and more. And so, again, I think it's especially important because there's just a love and a work ethic as a second immigrant child that I feel is worth sharing, and it's worth enlightening people on, and it's worth talking about. And in addition to putting it into our art, I think we can put it into our conversation and our discourse, and we can make a difference with some small things. Yo, welcome to Slap the Power. Special guest today. This is a special episode from the road. I am just beyond excited to have one of my favorite human beings on planet Earth, one of the most musical people I know. You and Ty Taylor are number one and number one. And it is a tremendous honor to have the one and only, the musical superstar, Mr. Ronnie Dee, with me on the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
My girl Maya is out. I'm looking forward to when she is back. But in the meantime, I am here in beautiful, beautiful Holland, actually in Haarlem, Holland, which, did you know this, Ronnie, that there is an actual real Harlem?
That's beautiful. You can
first Harlem.
Holla from Harlem in Holland. Holla.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. But one of the things with the show, as everybody knows, we want to blend artistry with so many things are kind of on the edges, and we have so much an Overton window, I believe, that we all actually agree on. We just happen to be shuttled into these algorithmic teams, these red and blue teams, and myself being from California, Ronnie being from Florida, there's an issue that's particularly near and dear to my heart, just as a matter of raising the awareness on things, and that is what we would call the quote-unquote border, right? You know, Trump and his wall, and there was all kinds of things on how to deal with it. But for the better part of 30 years, it's basically been used as a political cudgel, and there's no real solution, and it's only getting worse. And Shamefully. And I know whether it be in Florida and the situation you're dealing with, there's sort of anti-immigrant sentiment that's going there, sending people from Texas to Martha's Vineyard, for a political stunt
is right.
I wanted to explore this from an artist perspective because Ronnie, much like myself, is from we'll call ourselves second generation immigrant children, and senor. So please, while I got you here, go ahead and set it up a little bit. I know the story, but the Bronx boy, and can you tell everybody your sort of second generation immigrant story, especially from an artist's standpoint, because your whole family is just musically. You have to be musically gifted to marry into the family. So,
thank you. My grandparents moved here from Italy. Hey, go figure, huh?
Hey, the old.
And my grandmother, I believe, was pregnant at the time, and they went through the full get their passport stamped Tony to New York, and Joseph and Anna Di Nicola had to stay on Ellis Island in the quarantine, and they got in and raised 10 children. My father's father passed away young. So all 10 children were born, but my father was maybe 6 or 7 years old. And then a single Italian immigrant mom that barely spoke English. And now my father's 10 brothers and sisters, some are deceased right now, but they all achieved the American dream of being happy and healthy and having a family and a solid foundation for the rest of the family. Have a huge, wonderful Italian family all over the world. Mostly New York, New Jersey, and Florida, but
most of it through music, usually, right?
Yes, that's the family business is music.
Yes, you're burying the lead, Ronnie.
Thank you. My dad, rock star in the 1960s, and set it all up. We all ate a lot of meals off my dad's records, both as a placemat and financially. And us all growing up in the band, and it was always immigrant values that governed how we ran our business, whether it be music or a pizza shop or whatever. But it was, we came from nothing. We appreciate what it is to have nothing. So therefore, we're going to be on time is late. You'll be early. You'll be dressed. You will suffer. And you will look like you're enjoying it.
Yeah.
And you'll be looking good the whole time you're doing it. Because for us to be here, and this, again, was the moral values and fortitude with which I was taught, for us to even be here right now, we overcame incredible odds that you have no idea. So you better do the right thing.
Yeah.
So we have to do twice as good as the privileged to get half the amount of respect. So that was the thing that weighed heavily. Got to do twice as good to get half the respect. I got to practice twice as hard to get half as good as the perception of these guys. Why?
Yeah.
But that is why we stayed so hard in the rehearsal space, so hard in the woodshed, why they didn't suffer any fools. So, that's how we grew up. Directly because of our immigrant status when we arrived here.
Which is incredible because I do, those that know me knows my mom's Cuban and the relatives that I do know and considered family, the Barrio side of things, Barrio, came over on the boat lifts, and it was fascinating because my cousin Ramosito was in jail for protesting Castro. So I probably know where I get some of that from, but it's interesting to me to come over with nothing. I remember it's literally the opening scene of Scarface is is the caricature of what I remember as a kid. Yes. And for them to achieve, the house, the boat, the businesses, jewelry businesses, we are Cuban,
yes.
And so, but nonetheless, the American dream, and it fascinated me because it's just a level of hustle that was always sort of baked in to my experience as well. And as I moved out to California, and the difference in the politics. You see the net result, and we generally have a lot of problems with homeless, but this episode is on immigrants and mostly from our southern border, because we are in a systemic triple storm right now that is going to affect your children, that is affecting it's going to affect the generation that's coming of voting age right now. They're very wise and they're in tune to a lot of the information that I don't know. In our country, it's used as a political football, but nothing ever really kind of gets done. And the reality is we're going to have to address this most likely at the ballot box, which means everybody should be armed with the information. And as artists, it's tough for us because you're not going to put a bunch of facts into a song, right? What are you going to do? And yet at the same time, I think we have a couple of songs on this record, and I'm seeing this tour when we play them, especially over here. Ty sets up Holla Holla, and he sets up Repeating History from the genesis of where those came from, which was out of George Floyd and the pandemic, and how everything just turned so quickly.
Yes.
And one of the only real big issue that comes out of the right, it seems, is, what to do, about the problem at the border. And I can only think about that coming from an immigrant perspective. And then now as an artist, shining it back onto people and getting to experience that's what I always call touching the hand of God. And I feel like
I like that.
Yeah, because it's full circle, right? You see people that are here in Europe that they don't deal with the American politics, but they feel George Floyd. They felt when that happened. They felt the protest. They feel the division.
Yes.
that sort of, and we're running into the way that power is being assimilated all over the globe now is nationalism in a lot of ways. We have it with Christian nationalism in our country, and there's different types of nationalism. We were in Slovakia the other day, and they have a slightly different kind of, racism is in all kinds of forms. And I'm interested in, for you, you're in Florida, you're in DeSantis territory, and you have a chance to charm and to influence a lot of people. And I'm sure you talk to a lot of people that come from a completely different perspective than, us crazy lefties.
I am related to some of those people. So thank God my family's strong enough so that we're not divided over the politics of it all. It's funny how some of the direct descendants of the people that immigrated are now on the other side, which I'm befuddled by these things. But with that being said, thank goodness we don't argue about it in the house. We all have enough respect for our elders and for humans, which it really comes down to Okay, can we disagree on stuff but still be okay and love each other? Yes, we can. So we have that respect in the house, family dinners and such. What I try to get at is I have realized the songs that I write at times have been trying to reach my hand across the aisle, so to speak. And let's have some common ground and just hopefully have people consider life is short. What we have is precious. Why do you want to be an asshole? That's a big one. And the most important thing is if I can have people consider doing the right thing just one more time in their day. The right thing is pretty obvious.
Yeah.
People do wake up.
It's interesting because some of the most effective times that I find when we're playing is the speaking before the songs, right? And it's almost like the influence that the DJ used to have. I was always fascinated by that, right?
I like that.
It's the setup of the song. It used to be, taking you out of a song and landing you on the ground and then picking you back up and taking you to the next song. And when Ty will put a room in the palm of his hand with the setup of the story on, on how many brothers got to go down, how many sisters on the ground crying, please, how many times we got to go around before we stop repeating history. And it's, he's got a line in there about, his dad talking to him about how his grandfather was freed from slavery. And I can't help but being one of these kids that I loved the music of that came out of the civil rights era, and then I was born into a time where I thought it was behind us, right? And I never thought, my cousin Ronald Dee thought I was referring to earlier, they're red in southern Florida. And he was in jail for protesting Castro, and that's how he was able to come to this country and get the opportunity that he did and get the hand up. It was a different time, and there was a hand up that was available. But now, because of the failed war on drugs, because of systemic economic inequity, and because of our heinous policies at the border, we are not dealing with a problem that's only getting worse. Climate change is one of the things that's going to displace more migrants than anything on planet Earth. That's coming up in the next decade. We're going to have to deal with millions of people moving because of just, if you and I talked about this earlier, like if there was some guy showing up to my house with a machete talking about, I have to pay fealty to the drug warlords, I would grab my kids and
we out.
2,000 miles too, right?
Yes.
We were touring during the whole pre-Brexit thing, and there were immigrants that were jumping on the back of our bus to sneak onto the ferry, to be able, and they were just riding on the edge of the bus trying to get in. And Obama brought up this good point the other day. It was everybody was concerned. They were glued to the television about the submarine. And, earlier the day before, 800 migrants died off the coast of Greece. The only difference is the 5 guys that went down in the sub were white and rich. The 800 were brown and not. Yeah. And I can't not help. That's the genesis of the show. That's one of the things that I like to explore, is how, as artists, we can make it more powerful than just in the music, because what is reaching across the aisle, that's why I like to tie, it's the setup before the song.
Yes.
It then has the room, you can hear a pin drop, and then when the song goes, it feels like, okay, now that's moving the needle. How do you deal with that? Because I know you, and I know, the don't talk about religion, don't talk about politics. As an artist, you can't help but
of course,
that, and how do you feel about, extending beyond the song, extending beyond the lyrics that you're hoping that they get, if you hope they take the time to kind of look at them or look at them on Spotify, how do you view that?
Well, action speaks louder than words.
Yeah.
And my goal is to be able to look in the mirror and be happy with who I see and who I am, and have my kids be proud of me and be an example for them. Like, again, my father, mother, immigrant relatives, grandparents, great-grandparents are and were. And I try to watch, very carefully what I divulge about my personal self to the kids until they're ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
The too much information is also going to be something that's going to hamper our future, I think, not help it.
You mean, well, first off, you were talking about your kids?
Yes, my kids and kids in general. But that's how I extend my art, that's how I extend myself beyond just being a guy singing about, these are precious times. Let's get all together. Let's change the world, man.
Right.
We have to put that into action.
Yeah.
We have to be that person, the person that we want to be. And that's what I do.
Yeah. I mean, I love that. That's kind of what I'm trying to square that circle with the show is, okay, I think we're way more alike than we are different in so many things, and especially getting to travel the world like we do. It's so fortunate because, we reference this all the time. Maya and I do that. I don't even think 40% of America, less than 40% of America, has a passport, I believe. And,
I believe it.
So how there's just a perspective that gets broadened, and when we get to do this, when we're so fortunate to be able to do this, but then on top of that, as artists, you get to feel the effect of touching someone and changing their lives, for as kind of hokey as that sounds. And that's what I want to explore with the show, is through artistry. How do we raise awareness on that Overton window where we're more alike than we are? There's things that we have in common. And from an immigrant perspective, again, I think this is going to be one of the key issues coming up in the power battle for all the chips and marbles in the game. It's kind of one of those issues that it's very important to people, especially people on the southern border, because climate change is, in a single day, over 6,000 migrants are trying to cross into our country. 6,000, and that's 2 million apprehensions a year.
Yes.
And so that's only going to probably double and triple. So we can't yell at Hunter Biden's laptop and not actually get at the real problem, because it's a humanitarian thing. It's economically, we've kind of figured out how to try and deal with it in California probably better than a lot of places. But our border's massive, and Spanish is, you kind of almost have to know Spanish to live in Los Angeles, which I love. Because we know it, but it's also most people are like, especially coming from Florida, it's like, you don't speak the language, you can get out.
That's right.
I feel like is an area where we have to figure out how to, on the edges, heal the divide, and that's why I'm interested in exploring this. I bash on Florida all the time, and I did it on our first episode. I took a giant dump on Florida, but it's out of love. It really is, but it's also out of curiosity because, like you said, actions speak louder than words. There's a lot of there's a lot of information that we can help share as artists, and we can't make we can't make, statistical videos and make music that's going to interest people, right?
Yes.
That's just, but how do we cross almost music with John Oliver? How do we cross, to me, music with your Bill Maher's and things like that? That's what's, again, Green Day, they got to do the theme music for Bill, but I'm talking
cool.
the next level, the next level. How do we do it? First of all, you didn't want to say, but having someone like Joey Dee as your dad, and getting to from the Bronx, and getting to come at it from this, always be grateful for what we had. I think that's something that we all share, yet it seems kind of lost. It's a thing where I'm fearful you're going to take what I have. So
there's a different feeling in the air for sure. The last, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years, slowly but surely getting more intense outside, shall we say.
Yeah.
And it's going to pop. The bubble's going to burst. There's going to be a renaissance. Hear me. Mark my words. There's going to be an artistic renaissance where art is going to have such a hold over the public consciousness again. There's so many distractions right now.
Yeah.
But there is going to be a renaissance. AI taking over the world like the Matrix, that is not going to happen. The people are still going to need their 10,000 hours, as we have spoke about. And just no matter how intense it might get, I have faith, no matter how long it takes, that people are going to do the right thing. This country was built on the backs of immigrants. Right. If it was not for immigrants, and I know this firsthand, New Orleans would be a mold-covered swamp. Yep. The immigrants bailed us out, literally, with buckets going into the worst situations. Like my grandparents and great-grandparents worked jobs that nobody wants to work for hardly any money. My uncle shoveled coal in the basement of a giant tenement building. That's all he did, all day long, all night long. Shoveled the coal, sat there by the heater, the boiler, whatever it was.
Yeah.
There's going to be a renaissance. Art is going to change the world. We as artists, we're grassroots, but look, what has nourished the world for this entire millennium is the grass. And the animals eat the grass, and we eat the animals, and so on. It's a beautiful, symbiotic, synergistic circle. I sound crazy right now to a lot of people, but I don't care.
Yeah.
We're going to be able to change the world. With one song, with one piece, with one poem, with one podcast, we can do this. Yes.
That's fantastic. Well, let's end it there. I'm going to keep pinging you because the Florida-California connection, especially as the fight continues, kind of, we talked about this. There's a systemic issue that is baked into the Electoral College and into the filibuster that we'll examine at another time, especially for people out of the country that are interested in what is all that. But it is a difference between Florida and California, and yet you and I are brothers from another mother. So the connection between the two, I'm going to continue to be fascinated about how it's going there. You can keep me filled in.
All right. I'll be your man on the street. Yeah, here we are, Ronnie Dee. Man on the street.
That guy, he's fighting Mickey Mouse. He's fighting State Farm. He's got the worst inflation in all the country.
Don't get me started on the insurance stuff going on down here.
That's what I'm talking about.
Incredible.
I mean, it's climate change based, which is also it factors into the same immigrant situation.
Now, back to the climate change thing. I know we're trying to wrap it up, but I don't care. It's the internet.
It's great. I love it.
I might have a guest for you.
Okay.
A personal friend of mine and somebody that I'm involved with creatively is a PhD oceanographer. He is on the World Council of Climate Change. And he is on the board, I think, at NOAA. That's NOAA, for those of you scoring at home.
I know it.
And he and I are going to be working on a 8-part docuseries for, that's going to go to charity, the profits, most of it, for and about climate change. So that's all supposed to start shooting in September. So
perfect.
Yeah. I might need some bass tracks, yo.
Yo, yo, how at your boy? Yeah, I got
Yes.
you.
All
I
right.
got you. No, but we actually we're doing a couple of setups for some episodes on climate change, and it's tough because as when we make music, nobody wants to. It's tough to make music that people want to hear that is kind of on that, and it's hard to say because it's hard for those words to come out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Because it feels like it should be easier. It should be easier to sing about, wanting to protect Mother Earth. As I say it, as the words come out of my mouth, I'm like,
Yes.
there's no way to make that sound good in a melody, But Mother Earth and things like that. But you know what I'm saying? It feels like it should be something that we should be able to talk about. The problem is that some problems are so big nowadays that we're paralyzed. We're paralyzed by it. We're led to believe, oh well, this is what Greenpeace is just going to misspend the money, or whatever it is. It's like you wind up arguing about everything but the thing, and that's why I want to
Action.
It's in the name of science, love, action, progress, motherfucker. So I appreciate you taking the time, and I especially appreciate it. It is 1:30 in the morning here, and I appreciate.
I love you for this. Can we have our theme song play, which would be Edgar Winter's White Trash, Save Our Planet? You know that one? Fantastic song.
I don't. You'll have to send
Roll
it to
the tune.
Yeah. Oh, I love you to death. Thank you for doing this, and I appreciate it. I appreciate you even willing to explore into that, because I know, you're in red country, baby. So it is.
Hey, listen, I don't want this to go too far. I want to be totally serious, and I'm going to look up on the screen. I'm going to go right into the camera this time. I'm talking to you people. Slap the motherfucking power.
Hey.
Okay? There's your fucking moment. Edit this shit. Slap the motherfucking power. Slap the motherfucking power. That's what I'm talking about. Save the planet. Bitches.
That's it, bitches. I love you to death.
Slap the power. Boom.
Boom.
Bitches.
Bye, baby.
Slap the Power is written and produced by me, Rick Barrio Dill, and by Maya Sykes. Executive producer, Duff Ferguson. Our senior producer is Sabrina Seward. Associate producer, Bree Corey. Audio and video engineering and studio facilities provided by Slap Studios LA, with distribution through our collective home for social progress and art, Slap the Network. If you have ideas for a show you want to hear or see, or you would like to be a guest artist on our show, please email us at info@slapthepower.com.